Good news for me and my continued employment. 2024 is going to be a big year for new electric car releases. There's a lot of tasty stuff inbound over the next 12 months. We're talking luxury stuff, futuristic stuff, and perhaps most excitingly, small, simple stuff. Because, oh yes, this is the year that the entry-level, cheap as chips, family EV finally arrives on the scene. And there's going to be a few of them, actually. So what I'd like to do is just take you around the world on a little tour of the most interesting and exciting new electric cars coming out of each country over the next year. Disclaimer, some of the cars on this list were on my list last year but got delayed. Some of the cars on this year's list will probably be delayed too. This is not my fault. Please don't send feces through my letterbox.
If you like the Fully Charged Show, you will love our Everything Electric exhibitions around the world.
Next up, Everything Electric Australia
and Everything Electric London.
Get your tickets today.
Now, kicking things off here in the UK, where it's going to be a big year for Mini. There's an all-new generation of Cooper on the way, boasting a new face, a massively improved interior. Look at that lovely circular screen, that's fun. And most importantly, comfortably double the slightly piddly range of its predecessor. And if you like your Mini a little more maxi, there's also an electric Countryman inbound too. The Ford Explorer will also enter production this year after some pretty major delays. Fun fact, it's the first non-VW Group car to utilise VW's MEB platform. Slightly more fun fact, the screen slides up to provide a little stash box. Look at that. I believe Ford stole this idea from my mate from uni, Tommy, who was a drug dealer. Lotus will commence production of its Taycan troubling Omea Super Saloon. It's going to be extremely fast and looks like a big scary insect. I'll be honest, that's all I know so far. MG, meanwhile, which is definitely still a British brand and not a gigantic Chinese corporation using clever marketing, will commence production of the Cyberster sports car this year at its plant in Fujian, which is just north of Milton Keynes. And I'm happy to report that our man in China, Elliot Richards, will be driving that car on the channel very, very soon. Jeremy Git. And finally, 2024 is the year that we will finally get to see an electric Range Rover. It'll be based on the 5th generation of Rangy, which debuted in 2021 as petrol and diesel, and offer Range Rover's trademark blend of private jet waftery combined with formidable off-roading capabilities that will come in extremely handy when the Mayfair Waitrose car park gets a bit icy. Moving on to Germany now, where there actually isn't a huge amount to write home about in 2024. Mercedes will likely unveil the production version of the EQG, aka the electric G-Wagen, aka my parents didn't hold me very much when I was growing up. Saying that, I actually really like the look of this car, so what does that say about me? BMW will drop the new iX2, which is sort of like an iX1, but tour. Personally, I'm much more excited for the BMW Neue Klasse that comes out the following year. That's BMW's first bespoke EV, and for me represents the moment that BMW goes all in on electric, so look out for that the following year. And speaking of bespoke EVs, this year Porsche will unveil its electric Macan crossover, while Audi will release an A6 and Q6 e-tron. All three of those cars will debut a new pure EV architecture known as the PPE, which many Porsches and Audis will sit atop in years to come. Next up, it's France, who will bless us with not one, but two delightfully cheap and cheerful electric cars in 2024. We're finally going to get our hands on the long awaited Renault 5, which I cannot wait for this car. The concept looked amazing. The stickered up pre-prod cars look amazing. It's just compact, retro, stylish, fantastic. It's estimated to start at around €25,000 when it does arrive with a extra spicy Alpine variant topping the range. That will of course sit underneath the very impressive Megane E-Tech in Renault's electric range, and then above the two of them will be the incoming new Scenic, an ultra spacious family crossover, which I was really impressed with when I had a first look at it last year. Really nice cup holders. Citroën, meanwhile, will release what I think may just be the most significant new car of 2024 in the EC3. How good does this sound? A simple, spacious, comfortable, 5-seater electric family car starting at just €23,300 or €100 a month on lease. It's so blissfully simple that even the infotainment screen in the car is an optional extra. The base car just comes with a phone holder. This really feels to me like the one that we've been waiting for, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Moving on to Italy now, where Fiat will begin deliveries of its 600e crossover this year. That's a sister car to the Citroën EC3. And Alfa Romeo will join the EV party with its first electric car, the Brunero, another small crossover, another sibling of the Fiat and the Citroën. They're going to cost a little bit more than that Citroën EC3, but for the extra money you do get a little bit more of this. And Alfa won't be the only Italian marque joining the party this year, because Maserati is going big. By 2025, every single Maserati is going to have a pure electric variant, which means the volume-selling Grecale, the iconic Gran Turismo, and the bonkers MC20 are all going electric in the next 12 to 18 months. So good to see the Italian brands getting stuck into electrification. Oh, I think it's stuck like that. Now let's pop over to Romania briefly, and admittedly this is not a brand new car, but it deserves a mention because this is not a drill, people. The beautiful, teeny weeny, cheap as chips Dacia Spring is finally coming to the UK this year in right-hand drive. I love this car. If it were any simpler, the seats would be optional. Entry price? Less than £20,000. Come on! And to close out our tour of Europe, let's pop up to Sweden. It's going to be a big old year for Polestar, who will commence production of the 3 and the 4, bearing in mind that the Polestar 2 is something of a Volvo parts bin jobby. These two are pure ground up Polestar products, and they do look a bit nice. And also keep your eye out for lots of teasery content around the super sleek Swedish super saloon that is the Polestar 5, arriving the following year. Volvo, meanwhile, will commence deliveries of their smallest and cheapest car in the form of the EX30, and their biggest and most expensivest car in the form of the EX90. My personal love of Swedish cars is well documented, so the fact that we're getting as many as 4 brand new Swedish EVs this year makes me feel all warm in my meatballs. Now then, let's talk about some Asian stuff kicking off in Japan. Thus far, the Japanese brand's transition to electric vehicles has been as slow and painful to watch as a man eating soup with chopsticks. But things are slowly getting a little bit exciting, and we can expect a new small crossover from Toyota this year. It's going to be based on the chunky and handsome urban SUV concept, and Toyota claims it's one of 5 new EVs heading to Europe before the end of 2025. No new cars on the immediate horizon for Nissan, meanwhile, although they have announced a £2 billion investment in their factory in Sunderland, which will go on to build 3 new EVs, replacing the Leaf, the Juke, and the Qashqai in their current range. Design-wise, I imagine they'll draw some inspiration from this recently unveiled concept named the Hyperpunk, but we're not going to be seeing those especially soon. South Korea, meanwhile, is going to be a little bit more productive this year. The Ioniq 5N is imminent, claimed by Hyundai to be one of, if not the most engaging electric driver's cars ever made, ranks very highly on my personal can't flipping wait list. And we're also expecting an Ioniq 7 this year, a big, huge, ultra-spacious, people-carrying SUV thingamajiggy. Think Kia EV9, but Hyundai. Speaking of EV9, first deliveries of that car will have already started by the time you watch this video, while later this year we're also expecting a dinky EV3 to arrive, replacing the slightly long-in-the-tooth Soul EV and representing Kia's first sub-£30,000 electric offering. Ooh. That brings us to China, where there are roughly 9 million new EVs coming out every day. So it's quite difficult to know which ones to tell you about, but here is a condensed list of a few that I think are worth your attention. The BYD Seal, having blown Bobby's mind recently, will commence delivery very shortly, followed by a Seal U crossover version, which to my eye looks hideous, but people like SUVs. And we don't know yet if BYD's smallest, cheapest EV, the Seagull, is going to venture beyond the Chinese market just yet. But fun fact, it costs just about £8,000 in China, and in the first 7 months of production they've made 200,000 of them. Come on China, share some, you've got loads. The compact, gadget-laden, funky-looking Zeekr X will arrive in continental Europe this year and has eyes on the UK market for 2025. And then just a very quick shout out for a really interesting Chinese car that Elliot brought to my attention, which may potentially be coming to Europe this year. It's called the Li Mega, and it is the coolest looking MPV you have ever seen in your life. It looks like a Lightyear Zero got snuggly with a minivan. And finally, let's take a look at America. My heart does slightly bleed for our American audience because so many of the cars we cover on the channel, especially at the cheaper end of the spectrum, never make it to the North American market. But happily, the US is getting pretty busy making some increasingly exciting cars of their own this year. Production of Tesla's newly facelifted Model 3 is already underway, along with the very shiny, very silly Cybertruck. And there is much speculation that that facelifted Model 3 will be followed by a facelifted Model Y in months to come. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has stated that development of Tesla's entry-level car, unofficially nicknamed the Model 2, is, quote, quite far advanced. So we can expect that anytime in the next 1 to 20 years. Chevy's Blazer EV has started production and will be followed this year by a smaller Equinox EV. We may also be treated to the first ever all-electric Corvette in 2024, good lord. Acura, whatever one of those is, will be bringing its first car to market in the form of the ZDX SUV. We may get a look at Fisker's next model, a smaller SUV called the Pear, which sits underneath the Ocean, although that's not scheduled for production until 2025. And this may also be the year that we see the production version of the world's first electric American muscle car. The Dodge Charger Daytona SRT is due to arrive in 2024. It boasts almost 900 horsepower from its Banshee drivetrain and a lot of noise thanks to its Fratzonic synthetic exhaust system. I don't know who's in charge of naming models at Dodge, but they are at most 8. And there you have it, people. Those are my personal picks for the most interesting and exciting new electric cars arriving in 2024. I'd be really interested to hear which of the cars on this list are you most excited for? Which ones do you want to see covered on the channel in the coming 12 months? And is there anything I missed that you think deserved a place? Do let us know in the comments below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have been, thanks for watching.